Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the I'm Always Serious News Network's Sunday paper program. In today's news, schools set to open with new security. The Air Force Academy has its first female superintendent. Africa's house is sure gone crazy. Florida's woes continue, and dolphins storm the Jersey beaches. This and more on tonight's I'm Always Serious News' Sunday paper program.
It's the I'm Only Serious News Network with Dan Mahan, Tony Viejo, John Smarmy, Dave Morrow, Cynthia Stormy Haskins, and Jim McCauley.
Schools across the nation are set to open for this upcoming school year. And with the last year's Sandy Hook shootings, many schools have changed their security options. For instance, in some states, ex-military personnel are now taking over school security. I don't know about you, Stormy, but let me tell you, the last thing we need to hear about is a bunch of kids screaming at recess, kicking off old Sergeant Slaughter. You know what I'm saying, folks? Post-traumatic stress disorder. Other schools are set to allow their teachers and staff to come packing with their own weapons. Again, I don't know about you, but old Danny Boy wouldn't be sitting here right now if some of his teachers were able to pack a weapon back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. In fact, iOS News has a good suggestion for those school districts trying to find a solution to their troubles. It's a high-tech, low-cost option. Bring back the nuns. That's right. Bring back the damn nuns. Sure, they were abusive to us kids, but nothing like the priests. That's right. Nuns are cheap, and they won't let anybody else mess with your kids except them. The Air Force Academy elected its first female superintendent. Phew, they have come a long way. In fact, when they went to toast her, they had a champagne toast filled with roofies. Hers, not theirs. Cracker, please. Let that much change. In Africa, at the end of the holy month of Ramadan, in the country of Nigeria, people went crazy. Over 40 people were killed, many of them Christians and other non-Muslims, to tell you the truth. The leader of the group, it's called Boko Haram, or as we used to call them in the USA, Purple Haram, remember? They sucked back then too. The leader of the group, though, has now threatened that he is powerful enough to attack the USA. You know, they're the second leading oil producer in Africa. Doesn't that guy read the news or watch the news network? Cracker, please. The last thing he needs to do is make threats to us when he's sitting on a fucking pound of oil over there. Yeah, has he ever heard of a drone? Florida got some good news this week. People are no longer afraid to move there because of the alligators. However, the flip side of that is people are now afraid to move there because the earth is swallowing them up. Another villa was swallowed up this past week, but luckily this time everyone got out safe. And on the Jersey beaches, more dolphins come ashore. Dead ones this time. Cracker, please. I guess it's apparent that not everybody was stronger than the storm. And in our nation, folks, the drug czar is stepping down and will now become the commissioner of the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. His reason for stepping down? Because nobody was listening to him. Cracker, please. And in sports tonight, of course, this week, the Philadelphia City has lost one of its icons and coach and manager Charlie Manuel, who's been let go by the Phillies. Of course, the Sixers got a new coach, so that kind of weighs it out. But with more on the Charlie Manuel story and on the Sixers' new coaching hiring, our sports correspondent, Jim McCauley.
Thanks, Dan. Coaching changes all over the place in Philadelphia this week. The Sixers finally hired a new head coach. Brett Brown from the San Antonio Spurs is the new man at the helm. Ironically, even at 52 years old, Brett Brown represents the best outside shooter on the entire team. It was also a big week for the Phillies, firing Charlie Manuel. We at I'm Only Serious News are thrilled to have Phillies catcher Carlos Ruiz here in the building. Hi, Carlos. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Buenas noches.
This has to be a tough week for everybody in the clubhouse with the firing of Charlie Manuel.
Sí.
Okay. Was it much of a surprise for everybody, the firing of Charlie Manuel, Carlos?
No, the done day at least.
Carlos, feel free to elaborate on any of your answers. It makes for a good interview that way.
I see.
Carlos, what specifically did Charlie do for your career over the years?
No complaint day.
Okay. Carlos, what would you say was the highlight of Charlie Manuel's career over the years?
No complaint day. Interview.
Carlos, thank you very much for the in-depth perspective. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, Gracious Garcias, gracious.
This is Jim McCauley from the I'm Only Serious Network, and my guest tonight has been Phillies catcher Carlos Ruiz. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you, Jim. With further sports, our MMA update, and the correspondent for that, Tony Viejo. Tony, how's things in the MMA world?
Dan, thanks. The MMA world is exploding right now. It is amazing. All right. Last night was the debut of Fox Sports 1, and how they kick it off? UFC Fight Night 26. It was a pretty stacked card, and I think it was in Boston. I'm not 100% sure. Yes, it was in Boston. It was in Boston. I am 100% sure on that now. Headlining the fight was a bout in the light heavyweight division between Chael Sonnen and Shogun Rua. Shogun Rua, dominant in pride, former UFC champion that defeated Lyoto Machida, the Dragon. Defeated him, took the title away from him twice, even though the refs gave back to Machida one time. But we won't get into that right now. Chael Sonnen defeated him with a guillotine choke, and then immediately called out Wanderlei Silva. Now, with this being said, I think we all know where this is going. Chael Sonnen's tried to fight for the middleweight title before. That didn't happen. He's tried to fight for the light heavyweight title. That didn't happen. So now, what's he doing? He's going on the Legends Tour. So he's called out Wanderlei Silva. And then after he beats him, 9 months down the road, he's going to call out Randy Couture. He's going to get Randy Couture in the octagon again. He's going to fight Randy Couture. He's just going to beat every legend that ever was in MMA. Don't be surprised if 3 years from now you see Chael Sonnen versus Ken Shamrock. It'll be the best MMA promos ever. He is the Ric Flair of MMA. Love Chael Sonnen. Outside of that, that's all I got for the MMA news tonight, Dan. Back to you.
Thanks, Tony. And let's just hope Roger Goodall never takes over the UFC. You know what I mean, football lovers? Well, next up, we got a segment, our weekly segment, with John Smarmy and Dave Morrow. This time, John Smarmy talks to Dave about the ideas of his being used for children's stories. Scary thought, folks. John?
Hey Dan, thanks. I'm just like a GPS navigational system, on point. I'm John Smarmy, and I'm here once again with a gentleman who every time does this show. The fans just want more. I'm here with Dave Morrow, and he's here to talk about the controversy of someone stealing his works. Dave, what exactly is going on? What happened? Who stole your work? What did they steal? Why are you so upset? You're on fire. Why are you ranting, Dave?
Well, yes, John. You see, what happened, I made a recent trip out to Tijuana a few months ago. This trip, now, well, one might usually associate Tijuana with reckless, careless partying. My trip was of much more journalistic importance. You see, I had a connection. Now is not really a time to go on about the El Salvadorian crime syndicate. What's important is that I lost a notebook on this adventure. You see, I wanted to come up with a series of children's books, in order to educate the next generation on how to live properly, how to survive in this brave new world we find ourselves in. Mainly how to watch out for the rise of nanotechnology and how to survive in a cave without communication for a few months at a time. What we have, Exhibit A. The publishing house bastards here, as you can see, have inserted a camera into the front of this book. Now this concept I originally wanted to explore. The concept of the book was to create a generation of spies. You see, Ninjutsu is going to be mainly what they covered in later chapters. As you can see, they have their own diet and nutrition chapter, which I, of course, plan to include in mine as well. Next we have, yes, Little Bunny follows his nose. See, this is my childhood crash course in coded speak. See, what are you doing, Little Bunny? Buzzed his friend Bee. I'm following my nose, said Little Bunny. What smells so nice? They're trading nuclear weapons here.
I feel like those boys in that vampire movie. I'm lost.
I went to Tijuana. I'm glad I made it back.
Understandable. Is there some sort of reward for somebody if they find your prestigious notebook that you have lost?
I would love to put up a reward, but these publishing house fucks took my...
We cannot swear in this live television. I'm sorry. Hit the dump button. Just go back a couple of seconds. Okay? Why did you bring me here besides explain this thievery this happened to you?
I have actually another series of Harry by the Sea books that I wanted to make. I still have the notebook for that. You can have that.
Thanks once again for doing the show. Any final last words you have for this segment?
Name the animals.
I'm lost for words. Do your thing, Dan. Do your thing.
Well, Dr. Seuss was a little office rocker too. That's what they say. But let's get our weather update with our weather correspondent, Cynthia Stormy Haskins. Cynthia.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening. I'm Cynthia Stormy Haskins here with your weekly weather forecast. Current conditions, I don't have to tell you, it's beautiful out there. Quiet, not a cloud in the sky. Summer may be winding down, but these last few days, the sunshine has been doing nothing but twerking it. Although it hasn't been calling for it, I guess I was just, not on the ball. Well, I was. Yoga this week, but forget about it. Okay. The winds this week, they got high enough today that birds' nests were blowing out of trees everywhere. And I should know because I found one in my yard today. Unfortunately, it was after I cut the grass. Ocean water temperatures are up there. They reached an all-time high of 80 degrees. However, there was some dolphin fatality. That show Flipper, though, I remember Flipper very well, but goddamn if I can't remember a character besides that dolphin, right? Am I right? Main thing is to take away from my forecast tonight is that chicks were twerking out of nests everywhere. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you, Cynthia. And thankfully those birds escaped alive, folks. There was one other story from the city of Philadelphia. A body apparently washed ashore by the Quaker City Yacht Club this weekend. And seeing that they were dead, Mayor Nutter Butter Peanut Butter had them boated over to the Camden side and called their police. Keeps our numbers down. Keeps our numbers down. But for more misled thoughts, we go to our correspondent, Tony Viejo.
Thanks, Dan. Alright, this week my misled thoughts are about hype. This past UFC fight has showed us a lot about hype. Alistair Overeem, for example, got knocked out in the first round. Now he came into the UFC just about last year as this he was going to be the guy to beat the heavyweight champions Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos. He was the machine. He was the K1 champion. He was a Strikeforce heavyweight champion. He was in many other fight promotions the heavyweight champion all over the world. So he was going to be the machine to come in and take the UFC title. His performance has been lackluster. And this happens a lot in MMA and a lot of other sports. I mean, come on. Anyone remember Jamarcus Russell with the Raiders? Jeez. That never panned out at all. That was horrible. But my point is, the hype machines that come into, especially to MMA, when all these guys that win championships and all these other companies finally come over, like Hector Lombard was dominating everywhere else in the MMA world. When he came over to the UFC, again, lackluster performance, kind of fell off a little bit. We can't believe the hype anymore. You got to just stay focused on what the fights are and watch what the fights are. All these people are just going off this hype and they're just hyping up these athletes and they're not really doing anything. So that's pretty much all I have for you this week on my misled thoughts. Next time, I'm going to talk about some music. We're going to talk about One Direction and the Beatles. That's going to be interesting. Back to you, Dan.
Well, thank you, everybody, for watching this week's edition of the I'm Only Serious News, a Sunday paper program. And thank you to my fellow news people, Jim McCauley in sports, John Smarmy, Dave Mara, Tony Viejo with the MMA updates and the misled thoughts, and our own Cynthia Stormy Haskins with the weather. For iOS News, I'm Dan Mahan, and thank you once again. See you next week.